Feeling burned out working from home? Here's some steps you can take to improve your situation. Welcome to another edition of Shine 365, where our job is to help you lead a better life. Today we'll be discussing an article by Business Insider entitled "A Working Mom Who Burned Out Shares Expert Advice on Coping" by Danielle Campomore. I used to enjoy a daily cry during my third round of dishwashing. If my sobs grew loud enough for my children to hear, I'd excuse myself to the bathroom. I'd pick fights with my partner, an essential worker, for exposing himself to COVID-19 while I worked from home caring for our children. Now, I just feel detached. Depersonalization, the feeling of being detached from your surroundings or self. It's one of the 3 core components of burnout. A lot of people are feeling this way now. Depersonalization, being detached from yourself, your surroundings, and all the other things around you. The other components of burnout are exhaustion and a reduced sense of personal accomplishment. It's been really rough trying to navigate through these tough times. But there are steps we can take to improve our mood and stop ourselves from burning out completely. Burnout has become a hot topic ever since COVID-19 blurred the boundaries between our personal and working lives. Countless articles have been written on how to mitigate burnout, or if you're lucky, avoid it entirely. Mothers especially exist in a world in which they always take on more and more. And that was a problem long before COVID-19. Dr. Jessica Gold, an assistant professor of psychiatry at Washington University, said COVID only made it worse because moms inherently fall into this caregiver role. Now here's an alarming and yet at the same time interesting statistic. Of the 35 million working moms in the U.S. at the end of 2019, 9.8 million were suffering from workplace burnout. The same survey found that moms were 28% more likely to suffer from burnout than dads. Now, in the aftermath of the pandemic, 1 in 3 women are considering leaving their jobs. 1 in 3 women. That is a huge statistic. People across the board are burned out, but this is affecting women more than men. Although burnout is usually discussed in relation to work life, its symptoms can be experienced by anyone, and it does exist outside the workplace. Modern definitions of work don't account for the emotional strain of caregiving. When you really think about it, if you're caring for children, if you're caring for your family, you're trying to work from home or semi-work from home, how can you juggle it all and not become burned out? It's not a question of if, it's a question of American culture values people who work hard, and burnout in some capacity is a measure of how hard you're working, but we should not be glorifying burnout. If people are thanking you for taking on more work, they're just going to conclude that feeling burned out is how you're supposed to feel, and that's not the road we want to go down, especially for working moms. The author says, "I consistently list my daily accomplishments, not just in the hope of articulating how overwhelmed I am, but to prove to myself that I am a good mom. But when I stop for a moment and realize that my constant state of burnout isn't normal and certainly isn't sustainable, the tips and tricks for avoiding it don't apply. People tell me to get a pedicure or meditate. They're not offering me a reprieve. They're adding another thing to my to-do list. And as we all struggle through these difficult times, both women and men, we get burned out. We're not sure what we're supposed to do. There's so much uncertainty about things. If you're a caregiver and you're trying to juggle all these things in the air, it's almost impossible to keep them going. The problem is that moms don't have the time or the help. So when you say to a mom, "Why don't you go to a yoga class?" it's actually incredibly condescending because it puts the onus on her. It's another place where she's failing. Not only is it impossible to be a good employee and keep up with the demands of taking care of a home and raising children, now she's also failing at her own self-care. Lakesham says that telling moms they need to do something to avoid burnout is like telling them to chase a solution that doesn't exist, because it's not the mom's fault, or any person's fault for that reason, that they're burned out. It's the fault of the system that doesn't adequately support caregivers. People think burnout is a person's fault when in fact it's because we don't have mandatory paid parental leave. We don't have offices that provide daycare. If moms are to avoid burnout, our entire system has to change. And this is a tall order for a country so politically divided. So Langsham encourages everybody, like the author, to just be angry. You need to feel angry because anger reminds you that these are external problems that need to be changed. This is the first step in recognizing that this isn't my fault, but it's the fault of a broken system. Unless you do get angry, things will not change. Unless you get angry and things are brought up and things are discussed and ways to move forward are enacted, then nothing will change. We seem to have a few broken systems in our society, and COVID just pointed them out in a more meaningful way. We're realizing that things need to change. But most importantly, Gold says, it's important to keep trying to prioritize yourself, even when it feels impossible. Because moms and everyone else out there that's working so hard, they need to put themselves on their own to-do list, even if it feels there isn't enough time in the day. On your to-do list, starting now, you need to put yourself towards the top, because what you do is important. And remember, as the caregiver, you're one of the most important people in your family's household. I hope this podcast gave you some things to think about. I look forward to any comments in the comments section. Please give us a thumbs up and share the podcast with others if you enjoyed it, if it's given you food for thought. And as always, please like and subscribe, and we'll see you next time on Shine 365.